Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com. Welcome to the show and welcome to my favorites of 2018. This is the time of year where I look back at everything that I bought and read during the year and talk about those things that I really liked. None of this best of stuff because, that's totally arbitrary and opinionated. And while you still get my arbitrary and opinionated choices, they are, however, what I'm calling my favorites. But first, some stats. So for those people who like numbers, and for some reason, even though I'm a words guy and not a maths guy, I like numbers when it comes to talking about my comics. And so I, just to let people know, I purchased 391 individual issues and 29 trades for a total of 420 comic books, more or less. 219 of those were from DC Comics, 76 were from Marvel, 39 from Image specifically, and the rest, 86, were other publishers. And 5 of those 86 were single purchases from a particular publisher, which I thought was an interesting stat. And since I'm talking about those other publishers, I'm going to start with those first, beginning with Image Comics. This year's favorites list was a little sparse in comparison to previous years, which I found very interesting. And I'm not sure why that was. It's not that I didn't enjoy, many of the things that I read last year. There's quite a few that I really, really liked, but for some reason, when I was looking back at everything that I had read in 2018, the number of things, with the possible exception of one publisher, just, I guess, really didn't excite me for some reason. And I don't think it's necessarily the fault of the things that I read. I think my taste, my enjoyment level or something along those lines is a little different now. I'm not sure why that is. It's something that I've been thinking about for the past several days, especially as I've been collecting my thoughts and putting down or making my list of favorites. And so I don't know. I'm not sure where I'm going with that necessarily, but it is what it is, I guess. But anyway, the books that I did enjoy from Image in particular, one is Kill or Be Killed. So according to my comic book database, issues 15 through 20 came out in 2018. Now, some of those numbers might be a little off for those that are particularly good at tracking when things came out, but I didn't go and check everything on this list. But I'll just take my database's word for it. But we had those issues, not a whole lot. I mean, that's only 6 issues of Kill or Be Killed for the year. This is the series by Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips, and Elizabeth Breitweiser. Basically, any book by Brubaker Phillips that I get during the year is a good thing. And this one was another great series from them, another crime-based series, but which I really enjoyed overall. I did really like how Brubaker and Phillips were kind of experimenting a little bit with page layout and storytelling that they did. And then, the final arc of the series, I thought, it kind of starts off a bit low key, with the main character in a certain situation, a certain place. And, but then, boy, once that final arc gets going, there, especially I think it was the final issue or the penultimate issue, where just things kind of end with a bang or there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm being intentionally vague because I don't want to spoil it for people, but I really enjoyed how that story ended. And then the only other thing, which this is again just so weird. The only other thing that I put on this list was a collection of a miniseries that came out earlier in the year, but I got the trade and read it actually just recently, within the last 2 months, something like that. This is The Further Adventures of The Further Adventures of Nick Wilson, by Eddie Gorodetsky and Mark Andrenko, with art by Steve Sadowski and Ian Churchill. And this is I really dug this series. I was intrigued by the solicitation for the miniseries. So this trade collects issues 1 through 5. But I decided to wait for a trade and also kind of see, what kind of word from other people that read the series, and based on that, and although there wasn't a whole lot that I actually saw, I decided to get the series in trade, and boy, did I enjoy it. So this is basically some ordinary guy becomes Superman for a short time, but then he loses his powers. And this is that story. What does this guy go through after having been Superman for a short time period? And that is really cool. It's really very much a midlife crisis story in a way, with superhero trappings, but it's really what Nick Wilson himself is going through, how he's adjusting his life, reconnecting with people that he knew in his past, especially high school friends. I just really dug it. How does he cope? How does he make money? How does he move on with his life? And a lot of those things are addressed in this story, and I just thought it was one of the better superhero related stories that I've read in quite a long time. I felt it was basically a great human interest story, if you think of it that way. So only 2 things from Image, which, like I said, that seems really weird to me. Other publishers, other independent publishers, this one is The Wrong Earth from AHOY Comics, which is a newer publisher. At the time, by the end of 2018, issues 1 through 4 had come out. This is from Tom Pyre, Jamal Igle, Juan Castro, and Andy Troy. And basically the premise is, what if the Batman 66 TV series and the Dark Knight Returns Batman were stranded in each other's worlds? How does the ultra violent and grim and gritty Batman deal with the silliness of the Batman 66 universe, and vice versa? And so we're getting a little bit of that by issue 4, and then mostly the plot is how these 2 characters are dealing with their respective worlds and trying to get back home, and then dealing with all the characters from the various dual universes. So it's just been a lot of fun, and Jamal Igle has been great on the art, capturing, I think, in the designs and overall depiction of these characters. So you get a good sense of what kind of a personality, a good sense of the characters based on how they look, and of course the way they talk. It's just spot on in terms of if you know the Batman 66 series, boy, it's just spot on. I just, like I said, it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. I'll be looking to AHOY Comics to see what comes next from them. I mean, they have a few other series as well, but I did not read those. But I'm really looking forward now to seeing what their Wave 2 stuff, and they've recently announced that in the press. So I'll be taking a look at those going forward. And from Dark Horse, I'm going to talk about 3 things, but they're all basically of a piece. They're all related very, very closely, and that is the Black Hammer stuff. So Black Hammer Age of Doom, issues 1 through 7 came out. I got the Dr. Star and the Kingdom of Lost Tomorrows trade paperback, which collects that miniseries. And then finally, Quantum Age, issues 1 through 5. And so Age of Doom is from Jeff Lemire, Dean Ormston, Dave Stewart, and Todd Klein. Dr. Star, Jeff Lemire again, Max Fiumara, Dave Stewart, and Nate Picos? I don't know. Quantum Age is by Jeff Lemire, Wilfredo Torres, Dave Stewart, and Nate Picos. And so Black Hammer Age of Doom is the second chapter, so to speak, of the Black Hammer story, although it's really, I don't know why they decided to do that, break it up in the way that they did, but whatever. You get the basically Black Hammer, which has continually been one of my favorite books to read each month that it comes out, is Jeff Lemire's take on DC's Silver Age, essentially, with a few other things thrown in there. Dr. Star is a not so veiled take on Starman from DC Comics, with a little bit of Green Lantern Corps and the Legion of Superheroes wrapped around what it was. A lot of people talked about this series, but wrapped around a poignant father-son story in there. I really enjoyed that story. I enjoyed that father-son aspect, but I wasn't as moved by it as I think a lot of people expressed on Twitter that I saw. But it was still a good story, and just a lot of fun to see a lot of the different takes on, like I said, the Green Lantern Corps and the Legion and stuff like that. So that was really neat. And then Quantum Age is Jeff Lemire's take on the Legion of Superheroes. It's future events in the Black Hammer universe. And which is interesting because in the Age of Doom series, where we were at when 2018 left off, we had Colonel Weird going through this journey, and I thought of it as a bit of a Morrisonian, Grant Morrisonian meta-universal aspect that Lemire was examining. But because of the some of the plot events that Colonel Weird is experiencing, when you get to issue 5 of Quantum Age, I legitimately wondered if, for several pages in that book, I could not remember if I was reading Black Hammer Age of Doom or Quantum Age, because they were so intertwined and so connected and so tightly connected in that way. So I haven't read issue 6 yet. I hear it's pretty good as well, but I'll be looking forward to reading that. I think at the time of this recording, I'll get it in the next 2 weeks, I think. So I'm looking forward to that. So Black Hammer universe, really, from Dark Horse was one of my favorite things. And next is from Oni Press. This was a bit of a surprise. This is Shadow Roads by Colin Bunn and Brian Hurt, with art by A.C. Zamudio and letters by Chris Crank. I was really surprised to see this book, considering that Colin Bunn and Brian Hurt were working on The Damned, and which is a great series. It seems to be on hiatus. I'm not sure why. I looked up a couple days ago. I tried looking up what was going on with that, and didn't really find anything. Of course, I may have missed something. So if anybody out there who's listening to this knows what the deal is, I'd love to find out. Let me know. But Shadow Roads was a nice surprise to me. Like I said, I saw Colin Bunn and Brian Hurt's name, and I said, okay, I'm getting this, based on the strength of the Six Gun and then The Damned as well. This is a bit of a return to at least the setting. It's a supernatural. Shadow Roads is a supernatural Western, but exploring things a bit differently from the first series, the Six Gun, which is really great. Everybody should go read that if you haven't. And from maybe a slightly different perspective, a different take, like, oh, I already said that. It's a different take on what we saw in the Six Gun, which is good. It's not just a continuation of the Six Gun with different characters, but it's enough of a difference that I am really enjoying it, and was very pleased to see that we were getting additional issues. But what does that mean for The Damned? I'm really curious if The Damned wasn't selling as well, and so they decided to do a Six Gun like book to return to that universe, but not really. I'm not really sure. Like I said, I'm really curious what's going on and why. But if you haven't check out Shadow Roads. And then finally, for independent publishers, I cannot leave this category without talking about Terry Moore's Strangers in Paradise 25 XXV. So it is Terry Moore's return to the Strangers in Paradise universe, celebrating 25 years of his magnum opus. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful ride, a great delight. Not the least for which is he's in this story where Kachu is the main focus. He's bringing in everything from all the other series he's done, from Echo, Rachel Rising, and Motor Girl, along with, of course, everything or some certain aspects having to do with Strangers in Paradise. While I love Kachu, she's my favorite character in Strangers in Paradise, so it's great that I get to read more of her and the situation that's going on there. But I feel it's a bit too focused on Kachu at the expense of Francine, considering this as a Strangers in Paradise book, supposedly celebrating 25 years of Strangers in Paradise. And we only have, I think, a couple more issues of it before it ends that I still need to read. So I'm hoping that by the end we get, I guess, more with Francine. But what my guess is that we'll just see a resolution to the current issue, regardless of how of my criticism. I guess how I'm feeling about that. It's still a great story, wonderfully drawn as always by Terry Moore. So. It's just whatever he does is just beautiful, and I am looking forward to reading the end of this, and then, of course, seeing what comes next. Okay, so that covers all of the independent publishers. So I guess now I will talk about my favorite Marvel stuff, which, again, very surprising. I only chose one thing on here, and that is The Mighty Thor. So issues 703 through 706 from Jason Aaron, Russell Dauterman, Matthew Wilson, who in this series has done the most beautiful coloring of any comic book series I have read. And letters by Joe Sabino on this. So this is the end of The Mighty Thor. I tell you what, the sacrifice that Jane Foster makes in issue 705, and there might be a little spoilers here, so if you haven't read it, I'm sorry, but go read it regardless. The fact that that every time that Jane became the Mighty Thor, it would basically erase any progress that she was making in terms of battling the cancer that she was dying from. And essentially, she was told, I think it was by Dr. Strange at some point prior to this, that if she continues, one more time, basically becoming Thor, it would kill her. And because of what was going on in the plot with Mangog and the Asgardians, she felt she had no choice, and she chose to become Thor and save Asgard, save the Asgardians from the threat that was Mangog. And just the reaction from Odin's son when she does this was just a bit heartbreaking. And I love the way that the way that the Mighty Thor resolved the situation by basically throwing Mangog taking Mjolnir and tying Mjolnir and Mangog together and throwing Mangog into the sun, and which impressed Odin, which I thought was great, considering the rocky relationship that she and Odin has had over the course of this series. And then that means that, as soon as Mjolnir is away from Thor for a certain amount of time, I was never clear how long that was. But anyway, at some point, she reverts back to being Jane Foster, which means then she would die. And she did die. And she was all set to, she was escorted by Odin himself to Valhalla. But before she stepped into Valhalla, Odin's son calls down the god Tempest, which is the force, the supernatural force that inhabits Mjolnir. I believe that's correct. Calls down the god Tempest to revive Jane. And at one point, as he's doing, basically shocking her back to life, like a doctor would, like, a Dr. Donald Blake might, which I thought was a nice callback. But at one point, Odin's son says she has thunder in her veins, and it just keeps shocking her. You've seen that scene, many times, I'm sure, in TV and movies where a doctor's not ready to give up on the patient. I just love it. I love that scene. I love how much Odin's son loves Jane Foster and wants to keep her in his life and in the world because she is an amazing woman. And even better, Odin joins Odin's son to help bring her back, which of course she does. And I know some people that I saw on Twitter thought that was kind of cheap. They thought it would be a better thing if Jane had actually died, given some importance to the story, some stakes, I guess. But I was really rooting for the fact that she would not die, because I loved Aaron and Dodderman's story. Aaron Dodderman and Wilson, like I said, most beautiful coloring of any series, especially those final issues. Boy, that was one hell of a ride. So, basically an epic end to a fantastic run. The follow-up story, we've been, the War of the Realms has been going, or we've been going towards the War of the Realms for several issues already. But now that we're really getting into that in the latest Thor series after this Mighty Thor, I have to say, not as enamored with it. I wonder if I would be enjoying this story more if Jane Foster was still Thor. So I think that, to me anyway, that's a testament to that character and what she brought to the Marvel Universe and the Thor mythos, generally speaking. So, boy, go read. I've been saying this for, 2 years, maybe 3. Go read Jason Aaron's run on Thor. It's mostly done by Russell Dodderman and on art, and I think Matthew Wilson's been the colorist for just about everything there. It was a great run, and glad I jumped on and kept with it, and you should too. You should check it out. The other thing that I really liked from Marvel Comics was the Stan Lee tribute in the February cover dated books. All the books that came out that month, right at the end of 2018, had this banner on the cover, commemorating Stan Lee, his birthday and his death. And then there were, three pages or so? So the inside front cover, and then 2 or 3 pages at the beginning of each issue where they were just black pages, and then on a right side page, before you get into the story, was a Phil Noto drawn, a drawing of Stan Lee, smiling Stan. And on the inside back cover was a reproduction of one of Stan's soapbox entries. And that was a great tribute to the man, one of the main architects of the Marvel Universe. And so the Stan soapbox I thought was really cool. And I'm going to read it here. I'm not going to do Stan's voice, even though my inner voice is screaming at me, try it, true believer. But as I found over the years, I don't do impressions very well. So anyway, Stan said at that time, "Hang loose, heroes. Now that I've got your ear, I'm not letting go. Our first tenabulating topic is going to be the Marvel philosophy. Whenever I get together with any of you frantic ones, the first question posed is usually, what are you fellas really trying to do in your mags? What message are you pushing? Is the whole Marvel series just a big put-on, or are you trying to tell us something? Are you actually serious about your characters? Do you really believe in them, etc.? Well, just between us, we believe in our cavorting characters a lot more than we believe in some people we know, and we do have a motive, a purpose behind our mags. That purpose is, plain and simple, to entertain you. We think we found the best formula of all. We merely create the type of fanciful yarns that we ourselves enjoy. And if we like them, you ought to like them too. After all, you're our kind of people. Now then, in the process of providing offbeat entertainment, if we can also do our bit to advance the cause of intellectualism, humanitarianism, and mutual understanding, and to toss in a little swinging satire at you in the process, that won't break our collective heart one tiny bit. That's it, Pussycat. Thanks for listening." And I would add, Excelsior. I also enjoyed, while not as spectacular, not as poignant as what Marvel did, I will also add that DC did a similar thing. DC Comics paid tribute themselves to Stan Lee. This is in the back of the March cover dated books, and so I'm fudging a little bit here in the timeline, but that's okay. So they did their own tribute, like I said, and all that was a simple message on a page, with utmost respect from the distinguished competition, Excelsior, in memoriam Stan Lee. And in case you didn't know, the distinguished competition is what Stan would refer to DC as. So I thought that was very nice that DC did that. And since I'm on DC Comics, these are my favorites. So I have several things here that were my favorites of DC Comics. Starting out with Action Comics number 1000. In case you didn't listen to this, you can go listen to episode 139 of the Long Box Review podcast, where I talked about every story in that book and what Action Comics 1000 meant to me. But I will mention here two favorite short stories in that comic. One is The Never-Ending Battle by Pete Tomasi, Patrick Gleason, Alejandro Sanchez, and Tom Napolitano. This is where Vandal Savage traps Superman in the past, and he has to fight his way through the decades to the present to rejoin his family. Which I thought was a great homage to everything that came before then in Superman comics. We would get these splash pages of Superman as he appeared, or that would evoke the kind of story that was prevalent in those decades, and they did so they did a great job depicting that. And in only 15 pages. And Patrick Gleason just absolutely kills it on the art, mimicking a bunch of different styles throughout those decades. So I thought that was a fantastic entry, fantastic celebration of Superman in Action Comics 1000. And the other one that I'll mention is Of Tomorrow by Tom King, Clay Mann, Jordi Belair, and John Workman. This is where Superman visits the Earth in the far future. I think it's like 4 billion years in the future, or something like that, to say goodbye to the Earth, his former home, by visiting the graves of the Kents. I just thought it was a lovely, beautifully drawn by Clayman and Jordi Belair. But it was a bit of a heart-wrenching tale, and also at the same time uplifting bit of narrative that was deftly accomplished in 5 pages. So, and you get a lot of that. You get it in the Action Comics 1000. You get a few really short things and a few longer things, and just a lot of goodness in that one issue. A new series that came out in 2018 was, and one of my very favorites. It's probably my second favorite superhero comic of 2018. And that is Hawkman. And we got issues 1 through 7 of that during the year. This is by Robert Venditti, with art by Brian Hitch, Brandon Peterson, inks by Andrew Curry, Daniel Henriks, Paul Neary, Andy Owens, Brian Hitch as well. Colors by Alex Sinclair and Jeremiah Skipper, and letters by Richard Starkings. I talked about issue number 1 and a bit of issue number 2 in episode 148. If you want to go listen to that, if you haven't already. I just thought this is pure superhero joy. It's building on the character of Hawkman, Carter Hall, from what came before, and expanding that character, the history, and his role in the DC universe, and his purpose as well, in an evolving organic way. We find out that not only has Carter Hall been reincarnating as different people throughout Earth history, he has also been reincarnated on other worlds in different times. The latest issue that I read, I don't remember which issue number that was. I think it was number 8. He and we find out this in issue number 1, but we see an image of of him as this character in issue number 1. But he visits himself, his past self, as he was on the planet Krypton. So, and there's been some other things like that too. I guess the only complaint I have right now of the series is that the last 3 issues that I've read, I hope we get beyond that structure, which is basically Carter visiting a past self. Now, while that's still cool because we get to see him interacting with his past selves, we've done it now 3 issues in a row, so I'd kind of like to see the story progress beyond that a little bit, and I think we are. So I'm really curious to see what comes next. Well, first, we have to have the resolution to the Deathbringers story that's going on right now, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens after this story. I think Venditti and Hitch are really just killing it on Hawkman, and I really hope that you, the larger comic reading public, comic buying public, get on board with the series, so that it's purely selfish on my part. I want more Hawkman comics, and we can only do that by buying more Hawkman comics. So please go buy more Hawkman so I can read more of this. It's just been fantastic. One book I have on here, I put on here 99.9% because of the art, and that is Mr. Miracle by Tom King, Mitch Gerrits, and Clayton Coles. I love the look of this book. It's not that I don't like Tom King's story, because I do. It's a different way of telling a story, different way of portraying the Mr. Miracle character and the New Gods, which is still great. I mean, like it's an interesting story. I know a lot of people were put off by the ending, but I'm okay with those kind of endings. So, but mostly, like I said, it's the Mitch Gerrits art on here that is just crazy fantastic. Especially considering that I believe most of the series was told in those 9-panel grids. And so I'm very impressed with what Mitch Gerrits has done, given those constraints. Yeah, it's just really good stuff. I will also point out that I really liked issue number 10's Dark Side cover by Nick Darrington. That's one of my favorite covers of the year. It's so simple. It's just Darkseid's face, but the way it was drawn, the way it was colored was just, I thought, just spectacular in its simplicity. Let's see, a couple more things here, and I'll wrap it up. My favorite miniseries, I guess, of the year was something that I read also just recently. Finally got around to reading it because I got the trade of this. This is Eternity Girl. This was one of the Young Animal miniseries by Magdalene Visaggio, Sonny Liu, Chris Chuckry, and Todd Klein. So this originally I just read in preparation for this was supposed to be a take on the Element Woman story from Neil Gaiman's Sandman series, but someone decided, I don't know if it was Ms. Visaggio or somebody else at DC Comics, but they decided to kind of take that concept, the Element Woman concept, but make a new character out of it. And the result was Eternity Girl. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful story, beautiful fractured kind of crisis level, or at least Morrisonian Animal Man crisis level. If you are familiar with what I'm referring to, storytelling. It's about identity and in the end, controlling your own fate. And I loved it. I loved it. There was in one particular issue, there were some panels where we get, and normally I'm not a big fan of this, but it was used so effectively where they would repeat these visuals throughout the story, and for different reasons. And I just thought was wonderful. If comics are the melding of great visuals in words, some of those comic panels in Eternity Girl were just pure comic book gold to me. So I highly recommend you go read this series if you have not. Interestingly, as a bit of an aside, I have just recently started reading the Milk Wars trade collecting the Milk Wars event, the crossover between the Young Animals stuff and DC Comics proper, the DC Universe proper. I saw that like they'd have like 2 pages of material that appears in Eternity Girl in the Milk Wars stuff, and I was like, what is this? Because they're just kind of thrown in there. There's no obvious connection between the stuff I was reading before I got to those 2 pages, nor what followed. But it does have, it appears to have some sort of relationship to the overall story of Milk Wars, and so I'm curious how that will all kind of end or wrap up or connect. And I have to say, so far, those 2-page excerpts from Eternity Girl are probably my favorite thing about the Milk Wars trade, but we'll see. I'm only halfway through it. So there you go. That says a lot about how cool I thought Eternity Girl was. And finally, and I'm sure some people are tired of hearing about this, but my favorite comic book of 2018 is from DC Comics, and that is Batman, the Tom King written Batman. Issues 38 through 61 came out in 2018. I'm going to focus on issues 51 through 57. The creators here, the artists and whatnot of those particular issues are, as I said, Tom King as writer, art by Joel Jones, Mikkel Hanin, Hugo Petrus, Lee Weeks, Matt Wagner, Tony Daniel, and Mark Buckingham, with inks by Danny Miki, John Livesey, and Sandu Flory, colors by Jordi Belair, June Chung, Elizabeth Breitweiser, and Tomu Mori, with letters by Clayton Coles. So issues 51 through 53 was the Cold Days storyline, where Bruce Wayne was a juror in a trial trying to convict Mr. Freeze, in which Bruce Wayne himself argues that Batman is not infallible, that he made a mistake, and Mr. Freeze was not guilty of the crime in which he was being accused. Which I thought, so this is the issues right after issue 50, after Catwoman breaks his heart by not marrying him. Spoilers, sorry. So we see Bruce Wayne, being a bit introspective about a little bit about that, which is really interesting because it came right after issue 50. I thought perhaps, this is just me, I thought perhaps that should have came a little bit later, but that's neither here nor there. Issue 54, which was probably my favorite issue so far, maybe my favorite issue of the year, The Better Man, and large part because it features heavily Dick Grayson as Nightwing. So, Dick shows up and he's helping Batman take down a bunch of different villains because he knows his father is hurting because of what happened with Selina. And so, as I said, Dick knows Bruce is in pain, and he tries to lessen that pain for Bruce by acting a bit silly. He's taken on the role of the boy wonder, even though all these years have passed, as they battle some of the silliest villains that they've come across, like Crazy Quilt or Condiment King. That scene where, essentially Dick and Bruce are totally ignoring Crazy Quilt, which is, I got a kick out of it. And then towards the end of the issue, they're in the Batcave and they're talking. Dick's trying to get Bruce to bet him that he can't. I forget. Dick throws his baton or whatever they call him. He calls it, trying to bounce it off things, a la Daredevil. How many times he can do it, and Bruce just keeps repeating, "I don't bet," and then Dick makes a joke about betting him a penny and referring to the giant penny that's in the Batcave, and that makes Bruce chuckle. But that causes him to break down a little bit. He almost cries, and he repeats, that he's fine, everything's fine. And then the emotional beat of this, the emotional strength of the story is where, and it's really cool the way that Matt Wagner showed this in the panel. It's just the two characters are in profile and silhouette, and Dick is kneeling down in front of Bruce and says, "I know you're fine. Just know I'm here if you don't want to be fine." That just killed me. I just love that bit of storytelling. It's also we get a lot of flashbacks to when Dick first arrived at Wayne Manor and how Bruce was there for him. So you get that dichotomy there, that comparison. So now it's Dick's turn to help out his dad. I just thought that was pretty cool. And then the Beast of Burden story 55 through 57. This is the infamous storyline where after Dick gets shot in the head, which don't approve, but whatever. But then Batman hunts down the KG Beast. In my head, I'm telling myself, don't say B Beast, but I did it anyway. The KG Beast. Boy, that issue where Batman confronts the Beast is one of the most brutal? That's a Freudian slip. I meant to say brutal fight scenes, but I'll go with brutal. Brutal fight scenes in a Batman book. Just amazing. And then what Batman does in the end with the Beast, just underscores the anger, the hurt that Batman feels about what happened with his son. So I just expect a lot of good things to come still out of Tom King and company when it comes to Batman. A couple more things here. So that's all my favorite stuff from the publishers, all my favorite comics and stuff. There's a couple other things I wanted to talk about. before I let you go. So usually on the My Favorites episode of the year, I talk about some of the disappointing things as well. I've already done that a little bit with some of these books, but I did want to mention some of the other disappointing things about comics in 2018. The first of which is the lack of my favorite books or the pause of them. And by that I mean, like, I got no new injection from Warren Ellis and Declan Shalvey. So I've been getting that in trade. That's, I think, for my favorites of 2017, that was one of my favorite books. But we didn't get a volume 4 trade from them. And I looked it up. I know Mr. Shalvey planned on getting back to it, and Warren Ellis even said as much in an interview or it was in his newsletter, how he's just waiting for Declan to get back to it before we get the final chapter of Injection, which I was sad to see that. I didn't realize that the next run of comics in that series would be the last. That's too bad, because that is such a great series. So, I didn't get more Injection. That's disappointing. Saga went on a year-long hiatus. That's too bad. We didn't have we didn't have Lazarus all last year, or at least we didn't have very much Lazarus. It went on an extended hiatus, but found out recently that it's coming back. And well, we knew it was coming back to be a quarterly comic, but I saw in the latest solicitations that it has been solicited. So, at least in 2019, I'll get some more Lazarus. Similarly, there was Black Monday Murders from Jonathan Hickman. That was on an extended hiatus, but that's coming back as well. I'm still disappointed that we have no new Velvet comics from Brubaker and Epting. I'm always going to beat that drum because that's still one of my all-time favorite books. I miss Pete Tomasi and Patrick Gleason on Superman. I'll talk about that a little bit more in here in a minute. We saw the end of Astro City and the end of Invincible and the end of the Kelvin Timeline Star Trek comics. So all that stuff went away, and I'm not getting any new stuff for that. So very disappointing. Also disappointing, this, and I put this on here because in 2017, I put this in the category of what I'm looking forward to for the year. And we've gotten Doomsday Clock in 2018. That should be a no-brainer. Jeff Johns, you have the Watchmen in the DC Universe, some big message that Johns is trying to say. And it's a bit of a yawner. This book has been, I think, mostly marred by the release schedule. I don't know. Just because of that, I think in large part because of that, whatever they're going for, whatever message, whatever direction they're trying to, in whatever direction they're trying to chart for the DC Universe through Doomsday Clock, they're missing out because they're not getting to it. I mean, we're going to get the end of this series here pretty soon, but I kind of think nothing big's going to come out of this, which is perhaps unfortunate. However, I will say, one bright spot of this is the characters Mime and Marionette. They've been the breakout characters of that series. But I will say I am looking forward to seeing the resolution of this, mainly in terms of how Superman will be opposed to Dr. Manhattan. And then speaking of Superman, disappointing, like I said, no more Tomasi and Gleason on Superman. We got Bendis on Superman. Now, I was really excited about Brian Michael Bendis coming to DC Comics in particular, but then, taking on Superman, one of my very favorite characters of all time in comics. But kind of like Doomsday Clock with Jeff Johns, the Man of Steel miniseries was dull. I mean, the art was great, but I felt the story was just kind of dull. The continuation of that story with the Rogol Zaar thing in the Superman title is only slightly better. At least Action Comics has been fun overall. But boy, talk about underwhelming. Bendis on Superman. I've only read, for the next one, I've only read 2 or 3 issues. I think I've read issue 3 recently, but, Grant Morrison's take on Green Lantern. I was really excited about Morrison. This would be something that would be on the what I'm looking forward to list, where Morrison's going to take Green Lantern. But after reading a few issues, I'm not digging the space cop angle, especially since I'm seeing what I think of are typical cop story beats, with a Green Lantern coating on it. So, boy, I really miss the Venditti written series that we had, the Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps book. Similarly, Jason Aaron on the Avengers. That, considering how much I love Aaron's work in general, and his Thor work in particular, I thought, well, this is a gimme, him on the Avengers. But I have not been impressed with this book, not liking it. So actually even dropped it. So no more Avengers for me for a while anyway. Okay, so what am I looking forward to in 2019? Well, I already mentioned this one. We're getting Lazarus back, quarterly Lazarus, but at least we get Lazarus. It's been one of my favorite books for a while now. For the last few years, it's been on my favorites list. We get, I mentioned this briefly, more Brubaker and Phillips. How much I like having just a Brubaker and Phillips book, and we get another monthly book from them. This is the Criminal series. I've read issue number 1 and loved it. It makes me want to go back and read the other Criminal trades that I have, but I have not read. I've only read 2 or 3 of them. This is before I started getting the Brubaker Phillips stuff when it came out monthly. So there's been a few of those in the last few years, but there's, I'm thinking 4. Yeah, it looks like maybe 4 trades I haven't read yet in that series. So looking forward to that. Next to last, finally, that doesn't make any sense. The penultimate thing on my list is, and I've already said this before, but more Batman, more Tom King Batman. And quite frankly, anything else written by Tom King. So, boy, this 100 and I think now 5-issue run that Tom King plans to do, I cannot wait to see where the rest of this goes, because it's been a wild and wonderful ride of Batman comics. And also, while I'm missing Peter Tomasi on Superman, he's now on the Detective Comics stuff that's been coming out, and that's been really, really good too. So as I tweeted out not too long ago, at the time of this recording, I think we're in a new, maybe I'm overstating it, but I think we're in a new golden age of Batman comics right now, and I love it. And then finally, this has been more recent news. DC Comics announced that they were adding a bunch of stuff to the DC Universe app. So, and I was just looking at this just the other day, and there's a lot of stuff on there that I wish I could have read and have not yet. There's Gotham Central on there now, Manhunter. I know that's a well-liked series, a bunch of other things, just a bunch of great DC Comics that I'm looking forward to reading. Not so much on my TV, because I tried that and that's no fun. But I'll have to access the DC Universe app on my tablet and read those comics. So just, I'm already paying for the service because I wanted to watch Titans and Young Justice, and now I get a bunch more new comics on there. So I'm really looking forward to trying that out. So those are my favorites of 2018. I'm really curious what your favorites of 2018 were. If you would like to let me know what those are, and I'd love to talk about those on a future episode, you can, as always, email me at longboxreview@gmail.com. You can leave comments at the blog at longboxreview.com. And also on Twitter, you can talk to me there at longboxreview. And I'm looking forward to that. It was a wonderful year in comics in 2018. I'm looking forward to what comes next in 2019 and beyond, and talking to you about those things. So until next episode, thank you for listening, and I will talk to you soon.